Hi friends, welcome to the Share, Invite, Proclaim channel. My name is Judy. We're in the beginnings of a new series on the letter of Revelation. It's a revealing of message that the Lord gave to John to send to the believers. And in the first three chapters, there is letters that are written to 7 special churches. And at first I thought that John would write one entire lengthy letter that would be circulated among all the churches, sort of like what Paul did in some of his letters, but I've changed my mind. Some of the specific issues of these churches would lend itself to just a small letter to that particular church. And later they were gathered and put in the entire message in Revelation. You know, John's in prison on the island of Patmos, and I don't think that now that he would have gotten a large enough parchment to send to these churches, and I think that they deserved a special letter all to themselves. So I changed my mind from the last video. Well, the second letter after Ephesus is the letter to Smyrna. I always like to know where these places are. That's the geographic person in me. And as you can see here, this is all Western Turkey, and you have here Ephesus, and the next one is Smyrna. And if you'll notice that it does have a bay, a coastal area, and it really is on this particular river. It should be a little bit closer to that river, but that's okay. Anyway, this is where this church of Smyrna is located in Turkey. Oops. A little bit of background about this church. It is on the Aegean Sea, like I said, and it is about 35 miles north of Ephesus. Population about 250,000. Oh, the river was Hermus, the name of the river. It was along the coast, so it had some mountainous areas, 2,500 feet along the coast. It was an ancient city that was destroyed by the Greeks in 600 BC and then rebuilt by Alexander the Great about 300 BC. It was a wealthy city. They sold frankincense and myrrh, which, you know, you can think about in the New Testament of gifts that the wise men gave Mary and Joseph. And they also were known for their famous wine. Their streets were paved. I don't know how they were paved, perhaps brick. They were paved in rectangular blocks. Public buildings were at the top of Mount Pagos. There was a street of gold that connected the temple of Zeus, and it actually went through the temple. It connected the temple of Zeus to the temple of Cybele. And she was the mother goddess of Smyrna. If you sailed into the harbor at Smyrna, people could see this golden street. It's the birthplace of Homer, a famous Greek poet who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad is about the Trojan War. The Odyssey is about Odysseus on his way home from this war and the troubles that he faced. The coins even had a picture, a relief of Homer and the city's theater. And the name of the theater was Homion. The Christian church was probably started by a convert from Paul's church in Ephesus. Another famous person from this city is Polycarp. In 156 AD, he was the bishop, probably ordained by John. He was the bishop of the Christian church and was martyred there, probably burned at the stake, and this was instigated by the Jews. There was a large Jewish population there, and Judaism was a legal religion, but not Christianity yet. And so the Jews would encourage persecution of the Christians. There was no weakness of the church mentioned in this letter. It was the center of emperor worship. It was the first city to build a temple to the goddess Roma and to Emperor Tiberius. And we'll find out that it had a large section of emperor worship. Well, in Revelation 2, and again, let's see, let me show you here. If you were in Ephesus and you were hearing this play, and it could have been performed and to Christians in this Ephesus theater, famous one, that only had seven windows. And here's Smyrna up on a hill. And so this would be put in the opening of this particular window in Ephesus. So the word of greeting is to the angel of the church. The angel is the pastor. It says, words from the Son of Man are two titles of Christ, the first and the last, and who was dead and has come to life. Talking about the resurrection. Then there's words of praise. I know your tribulation, your poverty, the slander by the Jews. You are a despised minority. You're a subculture. In terms of economic status, you're in poverty, but your spiritual status, you're rich in God's eyes. God's riches are things like peace and love, restored relationships, eternity with God. Jews persecuted them, and the Jews actually slandered the Christians and called them cannibals because of their communion. They said they were drinking blood and eating flesh, when in essence they had certain elements that were symbols for those things. They had no words of weakness, none recorded. Words of warning, though. Do not fear that you're going to suffer. The devil will put some of you into prison. You'll be tested for 10 days. It might not be a literal 10 days because the code in the number code is a complete period of time. It means the time of your tribulation or your persecution. And the warning, be faithful unto death. Words of reward. When you accomplish these things, you will receive the crown of life. And the crown was a symbol for victory and honor. He who overcomes will not be hurt by the second death. What was that? The second death is the lake of fire that Satan and his followers and unbelievers will be cast into that lake at the end of the age. And then words of music, the choir would sing, he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Well, let's think about some application of this. If Jesus were to write a letter to your church, what would he say? If Jesus were to write a personal letter to you, what would he say? Would he commend you? Would he warn you? What can cause us to lose our love for God? In what ways is Satan living in your city? And how does sin in others affect us? What little sins do we tend to allow into our lifestyle and habits? Well, that's some thought questions for us today. So this is the second letter John wrote to Smyrna. Our next letter will be to Pergamum, which is a little bit north of Smyrna, and we will talk about that in the next video. Thanks for watching.